Good morning. How is everybody doing? Very good. Uh, I'm Shantanu Chatterjee, Interim Dean of the Terry College of Business at UGA, and it is my great pleasure to welcome you all to this monthly Terry Thursday event here at the Executive Education Center in Atlanta. This is a monthly event that we do to bring our alums, our friends, our students to teach, to listen and learn from leaders in industry and the community, and continue Terry's tradition of lifelong learning. So thank you very much for your support for this initiative and for being here this morning. Very good to see you here. Events like this take a lot of work in the background, so I'd be remiss if I did not thank the many people who are involved in putting these events together. First, our alumni board, who work very hard to support this event and help us with speakers and things like that. The great development and alumni relations team from Athens. Some of them are sitting here and in other places. We don't know what we would do without them. They keep the college growing and play a very, very critical role in its success. And our sponsors for the day, our corporate sponsors, Synovus, a longtime partner for the University of Georgia and the Terry College of Business, and our media sponsor, Public Broadcasting Atlanta, who's helping to record and stream this event. Before we begin, we have a couple of other exciting events as part of the Terry Third Thursday coming up in the next 2 months. We'll have Susanna Frost on October 16th, president of Chick-fil-A. And on November 20, we'll have Charles Watson, CEO of Small Sliders. So I hope to see many of you at those events as well. Without further ado, it is my pleasure today to welcome today's moderator, former Genuine Parts Company EVP and CFO, and member of the Terry Dean's Advisory Council, Carol Yancey. So Carol, welcome.
Thank you, and it's great to be here, and really would appreciate everybody being here today and supporting this event. And today it's my pleasure to facilitate this session, the fireside chat, with two of my dear friends and former colleagues from Genuine Parts Company, Paul and Will. So Genuine Parts Company is a Fortune 200 global distributor of automotive and industrial parts. And as executive chairman of GPC, non-executive chairman officially of GPC, Paul brings over 20 years of experience with the company, including his tenure as CEO from 2016 to 2024. Beyond his impressive career at GPC, Paul is deeply committed to giving back to the community, serving on the boards of organizations such as Woodruff Arts Center, Emory Healthcare, and also actively supporting groups such as United Way and Boys and Girls Club. Our second speaker is Will Stengel. Will is president and CEO of Genuine Parts Company. Since joining GPC in 2019, he's held roles as executive vice president, chief transformation officer, and chief operating officer. Before his time at GPC, Will served in various executive roles at HD Supply, a $9 billion industrial distributor based in Atlanta. He also serves on the board of the Shepherd Foundation and advisory board of Skyland Trail, a nonprofit health treatment organization. So let's give a warm welcome to Paul and Will, and we'll start with our fireside chat. Hey. Okay, Paul, so I gave the really quick intro on GPC, and I know you have this down pat. What should this group know? What is your elevator speech for GPC?
Well, Carol, I'm a little out of practice these days. And by the way, getting me up at this hour of the morning for a semi-retired guy was a bit of a challenge, but I'm happy to be here. Thank you all for having us, Dean. Thanks for the great intro, and appreciate you all showing up here bright and early. So Genuine Parts Company, we're approaching 100 years. Napa, as you can see, Napa is our great brand, iconic automotive parts brand, did turn 100 this year. So we've been around a long, long time. We've managed our way through depressions, world wars, pandemics, you name it. Now, Will's getting to deal with all the issues around the tariffs, and it's seemingly kind of one after the other in more recent years. But we just kind of keep on keeping on. So the Napa brand is 17 countries now. It's known worldwide. We took the brand to Europe. We took the brand to Australia. And it's done amazingly well, even beyond our expectations. But we also have a great industrial business called Motion Industries based in Birmingham. Motion keeps factories going. So if you think about Napa, we keep automobiles running. Motion keeps industries running. So every big factory, and I'm sure some of you work for big industrial businesses, they keep factories running. We supply everything from bearings, belts, and hoses to keep machinery operating. So two great businesses, combined about $25 billion in revenue. The company has gone through a major transformation, which is when we reached out and grabbed Will back in 2019. We used to have a couple of other businesses. We had a business products group called S.P. Richards. We had an electrical distribution business. We have divested both, and our sole focus now is auto and industrial, and two great businesses.
So, Will, we keep the world moving, and thinking about the industrial side and the automotive side. Maybe tie that into the power of one and how the two businesses, how you think about the similarities and driving those businesses forward.
Yeah, and I should just start. The last time the three of us were together in this type of format, we were probably on an earnings call. So got a little bit of PTSD here, all of us. It's a great question. So, I mean, I think Paul described the business well. If you think about it, the similarities are all around break-fix business models. So our customers, people talk sometimes about Napa as a retail business. It's actually not a retail business. It's a business-to-business business where your customer is fixing a problem to get a car running or a factory up and running. And so as we think about all of the things that our company needs to do to make those break-fix situations work, it's actually very similar. And as Paul said, historically, we have been a very diverse autonomous business. And when we got to the company in 2019, one of the opportunities we saw is as you talk to each one of our businesses about their strategy, and interestingly, they didn't know the strategy of the other businesses, and then you put them all in a room and say, look, you're working on sales effectiveness, you're working on technology, you need a great supply chain. And that was really the start of, once you simplified the business to be your two core businesses, how do you get more out of being together? And I think for any big public company or any company for that matter, if you've got a diverse global business, you have to be 1 + 1 = 3. And that was the mission that we set out on in 2019.
That's great. And sticking with the business for a moment, there is a business relationship for University of Georgia. And I think, Paul, you and I, early days, we talked about why didn't we have a business relationship with the University of Georgia? So maybe comment on what is that business relationship, the IBS piece of that.
Yeah, so it probably goes back about a decade, I think, Carol. And we have so many executives in our company, many of which are here today, who are UGA alums. Our the Napa business, Will touched on, it's not a retail business, it's more commercial oriented. So good partners of ours would be people like Delta Airlines. So we keep all the ground support equipment, not the airplanes. We don't make parts for planes. All the tugs and the trucks running around the runways, we keep those operating. We supply parts for Delta all around the world. So we were doing business with some universities. Think about those of you who are on campus a lot, Dean. You see University of Georgia's got a huge fleet of cars, trucks, vehicles running around. They've got a maintenance shop. They don't do a very good job operating it or inventory and parts. So we went to them 10 years ago and said, look, we'll take it all over for you. And we'll supply all the parts. We'll own all the parts. We'll provide them. We'll provide our expertise. that's kind of how it started. That then turned into a sponsorship deal. So does anybody ever go to football games on Saturday in this room? Go Dogs. I had to get that in somewhere. You'll see the Napa logo in the stadium. Between the IBS, that's what we call our operation when we supply the parts in the back rooms, to the sponsorships, to recruiting talent. We're constantly trying to get our name out there. When you mention Genuine Parts Company in the city of Atlanta, and we've been here for over 90 years, people will look still kind of, we're a Fortune 200 company, and they don't know Genuine Parts Company. They know Napa. But we're constantly trying to get our brand out there so that we can recruit world-class talent into Genuine Parts Company. We've got a wonderful university system here in the state that we want to recruit from, and we would love to be a preferred partner with all the universities here.
Carol, I would maybe just add one more thing, which is probably relevant, which is the MBA program that we started in the last handful of years is a really important feeder program for our executives. And so what we want to do is go and get the best MBA between their first and second year, bring them to the company, give them a wonderful experience. And our success is making sure that that person gets an offer, so that they go back to school and then come back to Genuine Parts Company afterwards. And we've had a ton of success, and it's a really, really important and impressive program that we put people right after they get out of business school into some of our most challenging problems. And it's in the early days, but it's you can follow those people that have been graduates of our MBA program up through the executive ranks.
And there's a couple GPC MBA folks here, right? Jonathan, David. Yeah, it's great. So we're going to shift gears to leadership and leadership transition. And Will, you sort of mentioned coming in 2019, and maybe talk about coming into Genuine Parts Company, the transformation role that you had, but how you ultimately prepared yourself to grow into the role of president and CEO.
Yeah, look, I think one of the things Paul didn't say explicitly, but maybe it's implied, is the culture of Genuine Parts Company is one of the pieces of its special sauce. So a statistic for you, we have 63,000 employees, 17 countries. Over 80% of our global employees are defined as engaged. So if you just think about any business, but 8 out of 10 people are proud to work for the company, they understand the vision, and they don't plan to go anywhere. And I think that's a very relevant data point to reflect the uniqueness of GPC's culture. So I would start with that. And when I was being recruited to the company, it was very clear that that was part of what made the business special. So as I came in with a change mandate, it was really important for me to respect that past, understand that past, listen first before acting. And people always ask me, what's the hardest part of the job coming into Genuine Parts Company? And I would say it's balancing the pace of change, even if you see opportunity. And I think that was the importance of the relationship that I had with Paul, first when I joined, but also over the handful of years as I got to learn the company, appreciate the history, and work with Paul to calibrate that pace of change. Running a business, you kind of know at this point in your career. I think what was important for me to do well was respect the past and balance the future. And Paul was a great mentor. And so, having a mentor that can give you that perspective is critically important. So I thank Paul often for that.
That's great. So Paul, flip it the other way. So you've had 6 CEOs in 97 years. And as you're preparing for this change, the transition from CEO to chairman and the role that you played in ensuring a smooth transition, the role that the board played, and maybe speak to that, because it isn't something that just happens overnight, and kind of the process, speak to that importance of that transition.
Yeah. Well, thanks for that question, Carol. So yeah, I went from CEO to chairman to non-exec chairman, and it is a transition. All of you involved in business, you're used to, I've been doing it, had been doing it for 40 plus years. You're used to a certain pace and a certain engagement. And one of the challenges is kind of stepping back. I had 110% confidence in Will and the team. They would take the business to the next level, and they have. But that transition is interesting. So you go from day to day operating, quarterly analyst meetings and quarterly reports, and now you take a step back, and now you're working more with the board. You're working on strategy. You're working on succession planning inside the board. So it is different, Carol, and it is an adjustment. And I'm still working on that somewhat. I think I'm getting better. My golf game's gotten a little better as I've taken a step back. But it's just different. And I had the good fortune of watching my predecessors. So you mentioned, before Will, in 95 years, there were just 5 CEOs. I mean, think about what you read in the Wall Street Journal every day when companies fall into tough times. Who's the first guy or gal to go, right? The CEO. And so they spin it. In comes a new CEO, new strategy, new team, new direction. Everybody shifts, and the company is kind of like trying to find its footing. Some make it, some don't. I think for me, there is no mistaking the success of Genuine Parts Company is that consistency that having just 6 CEOs in 97 plus years brings. There's not, this herky-jerky movement from one CEO to the next. Very consistent, very steady. And our investors, I think they appreciate that. And they look for that in companies. And I think, Will has continued the tradition, and I have no doubt will continue on a steady path.
And it really, this culture and the importance of having a seamless transition. I mean, besides CEO, 8 presidents in 97 years and 9 CFOs in 97 years, which again, I think average tenure for those roles is somewhere between 4 and 5.
Don't remind me. Thank you.
Yeah, but Genuine Parts is different, and that's the culture. It's different. And I mean, you love what you do, but you love the people, and I think that's evident in the leadership team.
And by the way, this young lady right here on my right was the company's 8th CEO in our history. CFO. Sorry. Well,
number 8.
CFO. And one of the best we ever had in our company. She led us through potentially the most difficult stage of our business history, and that was the global pandemic. With a steady hand, a steady focus, just kept us moving forward. And Carol Yancey will go down in history of Genuine Parts Company as one of our greatest CFOs ever.
Thank you.
There you go.
Wow. Thank you. Team effort. So team effort. So speaking of team, and I think this, again, I want to go a step further than just the C-suite. Even, Will, you recently had a change for Napa. And again, succession planning, the president of U.S. Automotive retired, you had a leadership change. Maybe speak to how you look at that, whether it's automotive or industrial, several levels down on succession.
Yeah, look, we're in the talent business. I mean, we don't, at least as a distribution business, we don't make anything. So it's a function of our relationships and the people that deliver the service to our customers. So there's nothing more important than our talent and, as I talked about, our culture. And if that's true, then there's nothing more important than succession planning and making sure that as the world evolves and the skills that you need to run the company changes, that you've got the right people in the right chair. So I would tell you probably 60+% of my time is focused on people. So thinking about, do we have the right people in the right job? Are we recruiting? Are we thinking about at every level, from the board down to the lowest levels of the business? So it's an active part of, I think, running a great business. The recent changes that we made were retirement, and so those were planned. You always have this debate and the pros and cons. Do you have the right person internally? Does the internal skill set match what the capabilities we need to take the business forward for the next 10 years? Do they have the right leadership skills? Do you need something fresh? And so you always run a very robust, thoughtful process to figure that all out and then do the best that you can. Usually, the average hit rate on getting people right is about half. So 1 out of 2 times, you're probably not going to get it right. And that doesn't mean that the person's not talented. It's just, it doesn't work for whatever reason. And to Paul's point, I think we've had a lot more success than not. But man, getting talent right in any business is the key to success, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's great. So maybe we'll shift to some business and industry trends. And Paul, I have to ask this. So electric vehicles, EVs, over the years, the type of questions, the pressure from investors, what was going on in the industry, where things were going to go, and then where you are today. I mean, the importance in all this is the company's strategy. But Paul, maybe just reflect a little bit on the EV change over the years from a inbound questions, concerns, or opportunities.
Yeah. So when Carol and I, and then the 3 of us would go out and meet with investors and analysts, they're always looking for that little Achilles. What's that weak spot in the business? That's, I guess, what they get paid to do. So for years, we heard about Amazon, and Amazon's going to put you guys out of business because they're now getting in the auto parts world. So, my gosh, they're going to change your industry. We would respectfully push back a little bit and say, look, we're good. Don't worry about Napa. Then we shifted when that never happened. Now, what's the next little potential pain point? Well, of course, it's the advent of the electric vehicle in the U.S. And Carol and I remember countless meetings. We would be in wonderful cities like New York, and I'd be sitting in front of a group of 25-year-old analysts who, by the way, don't even own a car, that are trying to poke and prod about our business model. And oh my gosh, the combustion engine is going to go, by the wayside, and it'll be the next horse and buggy, and everybody's going to be driving electric vehicles. Again, we would respectfully push back and counter with all the reasons we didn't believe that was the case. And kind of like the argument around Amazon, that has proven to be true. Look, there's always going to be EVs. But are EVs going to take over the entire, automotive vehicle world? I don't think so. I mean, there's 300 million plus vehicles in the world. Tim Walsh, what's the percentage of EVs now in the total population? Yeah, less than 6%. So Tim's head of IR. I knew you'd have that just like that, Tim. Way to go, man. And as soon as you take off the incentives that the states put out, Georgia used to be one of the biggest growth markets for EVs. The state took off the incentives. Guess what? The EVs dropped like a stone. People have range anxiety. How are you going to drive to Sea Island? How are you going to drive to 30A? Oh my gosh, I'm going to have to stop in Dothan, Alabama for an hour and a half and charge up my vehicle. No thanks. So at any rate, Carol, look, I'm sure 50 years ago, 75 years ago, there was another issue, just like whether it was Amazon or EVs, it was going to put Napa out of business. And here we are approaching 98 years, and we're just keep on keeping on. So that's one of the many that we've gotten through the years. Though.
That's right. And Will, maybe from the EV standpoint, if you think about the industrial business, I mean, that was my comment around it being an opportunity. We saw that early on as an opportunity.
We do. So some of our largest customers at Motion are automotive manufacturers, including folks really focused on EV. So think Rivian, And so it's a huge opportunity for the industrial side, for that factory floor worker that's trying to figure out how to modernize, change, evolve, invest in all things manufacturing. So we've got good things to talk about with EV. And one of the things that we also explain to folks is because we're global, most of our competitors, if not all of our competitors, don't have the global footprint that we do. And if you look at the 3% here in the US, it's closer to 6% in Europe. So it's a little bit, the whole concept of EV is a little bit more advanced over in Europe. And that's allowed us the ability to kind of look at trends, understand what's happening with the EV from a break fix perspective, you know, what parts of the geography are going to feel it next here in the US. And so there's a lot of reasons why EV is going to be a good thing for the aftermarket.
That's great.
And genuine parts.
And I think about your strategic investment priorities, and you have already kind of touched on it, but emerging technology and just the whole technology, we'll maybe talk about a couple of the exciting things in that area.
Yeah, look, I mean, so we have a whole pillar that we call emerging technology. It's a bit of a catch-all. 5 years ago, we used it to talk about EV. But the concept for our business is anything that's got the potential to disrupt your business model, we can't let surprise us. And so EV got a lot of our analytics and attention a handful of years ago, still does. I mean, AI is now the topic. And it's real, folks. I mean, it is going to be massively disruptive for business. And I think it's like all of these emerging technologies, it's not clear how, when, where. But as business leaders, we've got a pretty meaningful responsibility to make sense of it and try it and test it and learn it so that we can make sure that we're not waking up one day and seeing someone like an Amazon in some small pocket all of a sudden doing something that was a surprise. So that's the emerging technology. Underlying all of our efforts at the business is technology. And I would argue that if you're not using technology to modernize every piece of your business, you're probably going to fall behind at some point. And so whether it's technology into supply chain, whether it's technology into people, we just did the first ever global rollout of a HR information systems Workday. Before, if I wanted a headcount report globally, it would probably take me 3 weeks at best. And now I can sit at my desk and hit a button and know who's been hiring, who's been firing, spans, layers, and 60% of our cost is people cost. So that's just a real example of why you would use technology to manage your business better and create more value. So we hired an incredible technologist about 4 years ago. And I would tell you that's probably one of the most important chairs. If you connect the tech thought with the talent thought, getting a technologist that is action-oriented and gets stuff done. There are a lot of great technology leaders that have the big vision or like the shiny new software. That's a dangerous trap to fall into. And Naveen has been wonderful for our company to know what the world is happening from a technology perspective, prioritizing where we're going to spend our energy and finite resources, and then actually go get stuff done. And I think we got a lot of really exciting work happening.
So you're a technology company.
We'd like the valuation of a technology company, but not yet.
So another pillar, another strategic investment priority is supply chain, and you touched on tariffs, but supply chain within your organization and really the power of one and size and scale, it matters. So maybe speak a little bit on supply chain, and if you want to weave in tariffs, that's great.
Yeah, I mean, we're a distribution business, so our supply chain is the core of what makes us good or bad. We've talked a little bit about the global nature of our relationships. We buy a lot of product from all parts of the world, but in particular China. And so over the last handful of years, just that simple thought has gotten very complex. So whether it's tariff, you know, what's the cost of a container in a pandemic world? How long will it take? How many can you get? Because they're only making 3. And so part of our differentiation, because you're big and global, is you go to that manufacturer in China and say, hey, it's not just Napa US, it's global Napa. And that creates a different discussion. So we've done a lot of work in that regard. We've done a lot of work to think about, okay, you've got, I'm making it up, 20% of your purchases coming out of China. Is that the right number? Like, should it be something less for whatever reason? And so, okay, who are you going to partner with for the brake pad in India, in Malaysia, in Vietnam? Do they even have brake pads in Vietnam? And so that's a big body of work as well. And then supply chain, the facilities themselves need to be efficient. And going back to the technology point, so, move a widget in, put it on the shelf, move a widget out. Doesn't sound very complicated, but one of the things the pandemic taught us was that's a very manual human process. And when something happens to your people for whatever reason, it's super disruptive. And so investing in technology to automate and add technology into the flows of goods in DCs is really important. So there's a lot of stuff happening in supply chain, and it's a big journey, especially at a 100-year-old company that has been around for a long time and it's got a lot of opportunity.
Yeah. I think one of the things you don't necessarily think about is maybe the indirect procurement and the power of one. So we were talking about supply chain and parts going through your distribution centers. The power of one can be carried through on the indirect side, and maybe speak, because Will, you were a big proponent of that when you came into the company.
Yeah, we've got our leader here, Jonathan Cawthon. So if you think about, you got direct purchases, so basically your cost of goods sold, your product cost, and then you've got a whole series of indirect costs. So, freight costs, fleet costs, and everything in between. And it's the same opportunity where you say, well, guys, why do we have 5 vendors for our, packaging in our facilities, in our distribution centers? And interestingly, when you start poking on that and calling up the people that are in charge of having the 5 vendors, they go, oh, well, I love John. I've known John. He's my vendor forever. And, I think I'm getting a good deal, but I'm not sure. And then Jonathan Cawthon comes in and says, well, let me check. And aggregates up and says, okay, I'm going to call all 5 of the vendors and say, what would my price be if I had $100 instead of $20? And that's a great example of how you leverage scale. It sounds easy. Jonathan's been at it for a while. The change management of talking to the 5 people that all have 5 different relationships. And so you kind of have to lean in the right moments to make sure it doesn't disrupt the business, but also creates value for the enterprise.
That's great.
I think we have some of our supplier partners in the room.
We do? Uh-oh.
KPMG
Oh,
is
yeah,
here.
of course.
EY. Jonathan will be in the hallway
Yeah.
afterwards.
Yeah.
Would like to talk to you
Negotiating.
about your
Yeah,
programs.
all the
costs.
professional
Yeah.
services. I mean, we spend public company spends massive amount of money with advisors and get great value from it.
So maybe shifting back to talent, and again, another one of your strategic investment priorities, and you guys have touched on talent and culture, and I think that's great. The Paul, from the board perspective and thinking about the board's exposure to folks within each of the businesses and getting exposure to up and coming talent and seeing more than just, for the board's perspective, to see more than just the leadership team and who's really running the businesses, maybe speak to how you have seen that from a board perspective, the exposure to talent.
Yeah. So the world has changed. Business has changed dramatically over the last decade. There was a period of time when I think about our board, and I think we were like most boards. They'd come together once a quarter. It'd be a 2-3 hour meeting. You'd look at the numbers, what's coming up. Everything's great. We'll see you next quarter. Here's your check. Today, to be a director of a public company, you're all in. And it's not that, once a quarter, a couple hour session. It's getting into the organization, because as a director, you have liability for a company's performance. So it's changed dramatically over certainly over the last decade. And so we started, and you remember, Carol, we would bring a couple of our key business leaders, 7, 8, 9 years ago, would come in during the course of a board meeting, kind of give an update on the Napa business or the Motion business. That has now evolved to the point in November, we'll go off site for 3 days with all of our directors. Every business unit from around the world will come in and do a 2-hour strategy update with the board, diving deep into the business, talking about what's working, what's not, talk about the talent in their org. So there has been a dramatic shift, Carol, over the last decade in terms of how deep into the organization the board now really dives into to understand where are we good, where are we not, what do we need to do to improve, what's coming down the road. Will mentioned AI. We'll have, I'm sure, a session at our November board meeting all around AI, ensuring that our directors understand the latest technology that's impacting and will impact our business long term. So significant change, Carol, and I don't see that going the other way anytime soon. I think it's only going to get more intense.
And I would tell you the management team loves it. I mean, it's a great, as the leader of the business, it's a great opportunity for you to get everybody fired up and stand in front of the board and, what did the board think of my presentation and did I do a good job? What did the board say? So I think when harnessed the right way, both with the directors and the team, it's actually making business better, in my opinion.
And I think, Will, you could speak to, as a business, again, you've got multiple businesses and geographically dispersed. You also take this down to the business unit level. So taking the GPC leadership team, visiting with a business unit, maybe speak to how those are, because those are in effect internal board meetings with each business.
Yeah, look, I think if you're disconnected from what's happening in the field, especially at a big company, it's not healthy. And so you're trying to be helpful to your direct reports who are leading the day-to-day, and then they're a couple levels away from what's happening down in the field. And so creating some kind of cadence that's not just sitting in a boardroom and flipping slides and everybody saying, yeah, that's a good number, that's a bad number. It's really getting into the field and using that cadence to understand what's happening. And so every business has a different way to do that. And it's really important, though, and we make the time for it. And even if your technologist is going to visit stores, your supply chain person's going to talk to customers, it just makes it a lot more effective as you're working through business opportunities and challenges.
And Carol, I would add to that one of our credos at headquarters, we don't generate any revenue at headquarters. We're all overhead. All of the action, all the revenue is generated by those frontline workers, whether they're in a Napa store picking parts, delivering parts, taking phone calls over the lines, talking to mechanics and shops, or whether they're an industrial technician at Rivian or Georgia Pacific or Coca-Cola. They're the ones that generate the revenue. Those are the folks you got to get. You really want to understand your business and what works and what doesn't, get out and work with the frontline workers. There's a little table over here of Rollins folks. I work with the Rollins team. One of their mandates, when you join their board, you go out and spend an entire day riding with the Orkin technician.
Can we get some pictures of that?
Yeah. I had the little Orkin hat on. I was in there spraying bugs in somebody's house. But if you really want to understand a business, if you really want to understand where you're good, where you're not, go out and work with those frontline workers. And you all do a great job with that program, Beth. So I would encourage any of you who run a business or in a business Don't sit behind that desk at headquarters. Get out and see the real world. The real world is where our frontline workers are.
Customers are not shy.
Yeah.
They'll tell you when things aren't working, even when there's stuff that is working.
And I think your comment speaks to a lot of people here. Your service providers, and I always tell folks, if you're a service provider, know your client. Go out to your client. Go out to your client's customers, whatever it is. Know your client. Be visible and present. And I think that's exactly what you're saying. So thinking about the talent within the organization, and Will or Paul, I mean, I think Genuine Parts has done a good job of rotating talent. And you may take somebody from Canada to the US, or you may have somebody go within Europe. It may be industrial to automotive. I mean, I think that's so important today in talent development is rotation programs. So maybe speak to a couple of those things.
Yeah, I think it's just another great example of, even though you're big, you're trying to find the goodness all over the place. So from a talent perspective, we have 63,000 people. So sometimes when people come and ask me, can they hire for such and such job? I said, how can we not have somebody in the 63,000 that's a perfect fit, that we know, that knows us? And we've had a lot of success with that. And one of our most senior executives in our Napa US business came from our Australian business. Our Australian business, about 8% of our revenue. So it's the farthest away, it's the smallest part of the business. And we found a very skilled executive who's grown up in the industry. And while it was, eyes wide open because of the scale and complexity of the US, he was a perfect fit. And I think it's just another great example of how are you harnessing the power of a big company that's diverse and global, and getting I always call it the best of all worlds. And on people, it works just as well.
So I'm going to pause there. I have a lot more questions for them, but I'm going to pause there and see if there's questions from the audience. So just, there's a couple mics in the back of the room. Jeff?
Thank you, Paul and Will. Jeff Anderson with the Goodwin Group. So I was thinking about y'all's business. It's a little bit like when you think about ADP for employment, right? But you guys sit on top of some, bird's eye automotive and industrial. And I'm just curious, can you share anything? Because the economy right now is so confusing for almost all of it, maybe even for you all. But what are you seeing, or can you share anything? Because automotive, consumers, and then you got industrial, commercial. And if you can't share a whole lot, can you just talk to us about how you think about kind of green, go time, yellow, or red? There's something on the horizon we need to think about. So anything you could share with us would be terrific.
I think it's a really tough economy, honestly. I think if you look at small business, they're feeling a lot of pressure. Our proxy for small business is in our Napa business, we have what we call independent owners, which we don't own their operations. They kind of manage and own their own operations. And so think of them as small business. And I think, like all of us, they're trying to make sense of the world. So whether it's higher interest rates, whether it's inflation, whether it's tariffs, whether it's supply chain, like us, they're trying to figure it out. So I think they're cautious. I think on the industrial side, people are cautious, which is they're trying to, as the manufacturer, think about all of the things I described in the supply chain. They're trying to figure out where they're going to make that break pad. And so where are they going to put hundreds of millions of dollars to open up a facility, in what country, at what scale to compete? And with all the confusion in the world, that's a challenge. So I think interest rates coming down will help. That's a step in the right direction. I think tariff clarity will help. That's a step in the right direction if and when that comes. And the good news is that the consumer's relatively healthy, but cautious. And businesses are relatively interested in kind of going, but cautious. And so I'm hopeful we get through the balanced part of this year, and 26 things start to normalize a little bit. And 25 was a good example of that. People thought we'd have clarity, administration, start 25, and actually all of our indicators started ticking up. And then you throw confusion into the global economy and things, flatlined a bit. So that's my 2 cents. Paul, I don't know if
Well, the only thing I'd add, Jeff, is that, look, the big, beautiful bill, bringing manufacturing back to the U.S., right? That's the whole mission. Create more jobs, bring factories back to the U.S. It's great. We love it. But guess what? That's not going to turn on a dime. That's to build a factory that makes brake rotors here in the U.S., 3 years, 4 years to build that factory. So it's going to take time, but we're all for the mission that our current administration is trying to drive. But here's the good news. When you look at our businesses, Will mentioned earlier, we're a break fix business. You can put off buying a new suit, but if your brakes are starting to go bad on your vehicle, guess what? Now you might trade down and get the value line versus premium. We've seen that a bit to save money, and the consumer is a little bit more cautious, but you got to get your car fixed. Or if you are an industrial business and your machine goes down and you're a big paper mill, you got to get that machine fixed. So we're fortunate to be in a business that's not really discretionary. Got to have it. So we'll get through it. We've all lived through lots of different cycles. We're in a cycle, and we're very confident. To manage and to really get a good view of the industrial business, we look at certain indicators that have been soft for 2 years, going on 3 years now. We've tracked that cycle for decades, and we know that cycle will turn. And when it turns, it's going to be awesome. I hope it's soon, though.
Me too.
Other questions? David?
Yeah, great. Thanks so much. David Leiter with KPMG. I'm sure when we all think about Genuine Parts, we think about operational excellence, EPS growth, dividend yield. I mean, what you guys have done throughout your long history is so impressive. And you spoke about the MBA internship program rotations earlier. Can you share with us more about how you develop future leaders in your organization? Because I think that's got to be so important.
Yeah, it's a great question. It starts with being super clear about the values of the organization. So interestingly, kind of like the example that I gave on the strategy, each of the geographies had their view of what their value system was. And an exercise that we went through a few years ago was actually, okay, well, let's take all of those and look at them. And as you would suspect, based on the data that I gave you on engagement, everybody had different words, but it was all the same. And so I think it's really important to be clear as an organization, the values that you live by. The second part is to be very clear and scientific about the definition of leadership. So what are the competencies that you want in your company around building a good leader? And then the last piece is just having the processes and the tools and the operating rhythm to run that process every single day and hold your teams accountable for building good leaders. And it's really, really hard. It's really, really hard. And as Paul said, it gets harder when you don't have that clarity at the top of the house or if there's constant change. The beautiful thing about Genuine Parts Company is those values, if you go back, which we did, and look at the founders of our company 90 plus years ago, different words, sometimes the same, but they've lasted forever. And so I think that level of clarity and focus is mission critical when you're developing leaders and talent. And holding people accountable for being a good leader and living our values each day is the secret to success, in my opinion.
Carol, I want to give a shout out to the corporate culture of GP and Napa. Down in Southwest Atlanta, in the worst zip code in Atlanta, there's a nonprofit called City of Refuge. They take in the underserved, the homeless, a lot of ex-cons and get them ready for society. Down on that campus, there's a training facility that it has Napa and Georgia Pacific on it. They train those young people to become mechanics. And I understand 100% of them are hired as soon as they graduate from the program. So I think that is a great tribute to the corporate culture of your company.
Thank you. Yeah, please. I don't know how many of you are familiar with City of Refuge and the great work that the Reverend Bruce Deal is doing for the city of Atlanta, but I appreciate that shout out. We've been with Bruce for well over a decade. They're great partners. We have folks that serve on the board. We provide all the curriculum. And when these guys and gals graduate, we provide each of them with a full toolbox as they go out to start their, I mean, literally a toolbox to go out as they start their careers. And our partners in the community, so folks like Goodyear and Firestone, they hire them immediately because there's a huge shortage. There's a need for techs. So it is a great program that is working extremely well and largely because of the passion that the Reverend Bruce brings to the City of Refuge. And we're proud to be their partner. Thanks for bringing that one up. Yes, sir.
All right, I'm David Kirkland.
Hi, David.
With Salesforce. And the question I have for you guys, I saw a bit of excitement when you mentioned the term AI, data, and some of the things that internally you all are implementing. The question I have for you is how are you currently or how do you plan to measure the return on investment?
Great question. Will, I'll let you take that one. And Carol and I will watch very interestingly how you answer that.
It's a great question. It's a very real question. And I think it's a question, it's a bigger question actually than AI, which is how do you think about innovation at a big public company or any company for that matter? And how do you allocate resources and what's your risk appetite to putting capital to work to try some things that don't necessarily, that they'll play out. The things that we've done at the company is, I think you lose your ROI almost instantly if you don't have some control and some structure around what you're trying to solve. And so we took one of our most impressive operating executives. He's not a technologist. He's our most intellectually curious leader, EVP level of the enterprise. So this is a very senior person. And we told him his entire day job is to coordinate globally AI. So that was step one. Step two was we were very scientific around protecting our assets. So I would argue one of the things that is most scary to people playing around with AI is the unintended consequences of what's happening to your data. And so we spent time and went slower to build with small dollars the infrastructure around that said, we have a tool called ChatGPC and put the guardrails around ChatGPC so that when people were putting data in or out, we weren't exposed. So that was number two. And then I have every single month in my staff meeting, I have an AI update. And we have use cases that come from all parts of the globe to the single point. He asks the operational questions around how are we going to get the return on this? And part of that question is, if I do this project, will it benefit all parts of the globe to help that return? And that's the level of rigor you need. There will be people that will spend a ton of money on this topic. The technologists are spending massive amounts of money. For the average company, we're not afforded that level of spend. And so your question's a great one. How do you innovate thoughtfully at pace? And companies are working through that as we speak. Did that satisfy my former CFO? Yeah.
Hey, my name is Tyler Jones. Thank you guys for coming today. I spent a stint of my career running a small automotive parts distribution company. You guys have mentioned being a break fix business a lot. Can you talk a little bit about the speed of delivery that's required to satisfy your customers and how you've used technology to help kind of bridge that gap?
Let me take the first part, and I'll let Will talk about the technology side. Who did you work for?
White Brothers Auto Parts.
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah. So you would think delivering auto parts, you would think we were like delivering plasma to save people's lives. It's the minimum expectation. So think about our competition. And there's one on almost every corner. It's O'Reilly's, it's AutoZone, it's Advance, it's Napa. We have 6,000 stores across the US. The expectation from the shops, who are our primary customer, if they have your car up on a hoist, you've got to get to a meeting, you're waiting on that car to be repaired. You need a new set of brake pads. That tech, and he doesn't have them in stock, so he's on the phone or online. Who's got it? How quickly can they get it to me? The minimum kind of cost of entry now is 20 minutes from when that tech figures out the brake pads he needs. Our little Napa truck with the little Napa hat on top is pulling up in front of his shop with that part. It's 20 minutes, which is nuts. I mean, we're not delivering pizzas. We're delivering brake pads and rotors and the thousands of other products that we provide. The good news is the barrier to entry for someone trying to get into this business to replicate what we do, because we've got 6,000 stores in the US, but those are fed by massive distribution centers, of which we've got 40 plus now, Will, around the country that supply the stores that supply. So the infrastructure is massive. But yeah, 20 minutes is minimum. And then technology-wise,
but think about the SKU complexity too. So the 1997 Ford 150 in Topeka, Kansas needs the right part in 20 minutes. There's about 352 micro markets that we study, and there's a lot more than that if you go down into zip code level. So the complexity of the supply chain, having all the parts. So the technology starts with understanding your inventory. The technology applies to, going back to my point, it's in everything. The supply chain to pull that part out of a distribution center, one of the 40, get it on a truck, out to the local store in the 20 minutes. So, I mean, there's technology everywhere. And I think one of the interesting opportunities in these disparate distribution businesses, inventory management with AI. And you can actually start to see it with some of our customers, more on the industrial side, where they said, I put in my inventory register into an AI, and I know I need this widget, but I don't need that widget anymore. And so they're getting even faster and smarter, which means we've got to get even faster and smarter. So it's an exciting challenge. It's a complex challenge, but as Paul said, I think we got a great moat.
Yeah, and the inventory is totally different in Buckhead in a store where you got 9 million Range Rovers down here in Buckhead. You go out to Gwinnett County and it's all F-150 pickup trucks. So what parts do you put in what stores? That's where the technology comes in to help us determine what are the top sellers by geography, by county, by zip code. It seems like a pretty simple business. We sell auto parts, and it is, but the complexity in the back is significant.
So
you know that. You used to be in it. Yeah.
Great answers and great questions. We have time for one more question.
Hello, my name is Dhruvan Patel. During an interview with GPC, I heard that Napa is rolling out the new ProLink platform, which, just to frame it for the room, is the new online interface that helps repair shops and service bays order parts more easily. As ProLink rolls out, which KPI will be most important for you in judging the success, fill rate, time to cart, or digital share of wallet with your professional installers?
Paul, you want to take that one? I got it. It's a great question. So it actually captures a lot of the thoughts that we've talked about, which is being easier and faster with your customers, number one. Number two, help understanding the needs of your customers and designing technology around those needs to make sure that you're solving the right problem. And then making sure that you're getting a return on your investment. So at the end, so about 20% of NAPA's transactions are coming through some electronic touch. Paul talked about the phone call, the email, or ProLink. And so ultimately, the most important metric is for the enterprise is sales growth. So seeing that experience be easy, the product gets there, we've got it, and then that customer we're growing, you know, in excess of someone that wouldn't be on ProLink. So we need revenue growth when we make investments like that, and that delivers the returns when we make investments. Very good question.
That was a great question. All right, that's all we have. Thank you so much, Paul and Will, and I'm going to turn it back over to the Dean.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.